If I was a business owner, I'd be thinking of, okay, if the GEO is the right layer of, how do I get into the data? How do I get recommended? The interesting thing is the next step of that influencer for the AI, right? Like, how do you influence AI to pick up your brand, in a way that's organic, like influencer marketing was. Influencer marketing was supposed to be organic marketing because, I trust this person I follow on social media to give me recommendations because I'm like them. But then we're also forming this parasocial relationship with our chat agents.
Yeah.
And okay, how can we as the brand influence the chat agent to also recommend us like an influencer would be?
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Everyday Data with Patricia and Zach. This is the show where we explore all things that are trending in data, AI, and analytics. And of course, we're your hosts, Patricia and Zach. We are grads of NYU Stern's MSB AI program, as well as data and pop culture enthusiasts. And today we're going to talk about how search engines are changing, how AI is disrupting the world of search engines, and what that means for business marketing and how business marketing is changing, or has it already changed? And are you behind? Well, let's talk about it. But first, what is catching our eyes in the news? Zach, what has been catching your eyes in the news?
So this week it is, as of recording, the third week of May. So I think this came out this week or the previous week, but it was a story in the Wall Street Journal titled "Typing is being replaced by whispering and it's way more annoying." So this was a funny article that, my wife pointed out to me because I am a convert to text to speech. So I really feel that that text to speech has gotten much better and it's much more efficient to write with your voice, write in air quotes, versus to type. But the article is interesting how it points out that this is it's a known trend, especially with the rise of like Claude. You see memes of like Claude inputs of just approve, and a speech button. That's all you need to code, to vibe code. But how it's entering workplaces and personal lives. They had some anecdotal stories where you have your coworkers are all just mumbling to each other because they're just talking to their AI agents, or spouses that instead of, quietly sitting on the couch together doing your own thing, you have one partner talking to their AI, not talking to it, but just issuing commands with speech as opposed to silently just tapping away. So you have two people having their own conversations with their voice versus with their fingers. So it was an interesting wake-up call if you haven't tried it. The positive, I think, is that, yes, it exposes some of these tools. Like one of the popular ones is called Whisper. I'm personally using one called Vowin, which is a free to use because it's free text-to-speech thing. Or yes, Claude and ChatGPT have great built-in things to translate text-to-speech. And semi-related to this, because we're filming a little bit later after the story came out, ChatGPT mentioned that one of their newest models, aka LLM models, is now more optimized for speech. So what this also means is, yes, that ChatGPT and OpenAI are recognizing this, and this new model that's coming out that's optimized for speech is going to be optimized in a way of more back and forth talking. So as opposed to right now, the workflow is you speaking into your microphone, whether onto your phone or on your desktop using a desktop mic, and then ChatGPT would transcribe it and send that to the model, that the model would interpret this. The new version that ChatGPT is coming out with, or OpenAI is coming out with, allows more simultaneous talking. So it's more like a continuous data stream. So ChatGPT will be continually interpreting what you're saying without waiting for you to basically finish speaking. So kind of be in that sort of like Siri, I guess you could say, where it's always listening, but instead of sending the text as a block to AI to interpret and then getting a response, it'll be able to interpret your words midstream. So.
Oh, wow. That is hilarious and scary. The first thing that comes to mind is, do you remember when typing first came around and everyone was like, people are going to forget how to write like with their hands, and then they took away cursive writing, and then they had to bring back cursive writing because no one knew how to write a signature. And now it's going to be that people are going to forget how to type because they're just talking to their AIs to do everything for them. So interesting to see how this is going to evolve.
But I see like one, you just mentioned people forgetting how to write, and that's with a fun debate. I don't know if you and I are having, or maybe I was having it with Betty, with my wife. We were debating are people going to start deteriorating the thinking skills? Because as you type, you do sort of, you're forming the thoughts and putting it on quote unquote paper, digital paper by typing it, but you are taking a bit of a breather between having the thought and putting the thought to hit send, just like you would sort of revise an email and not send an email without thinking what it says. We're all also maybe losing some of that critical thinking of just stream of consciousness and not really considering how to form sentences and thoughts. So, to your point about forgetting how to write by hand, you're also maybe losing the ability to structure sentences and structure thoughts in a coherent manner and just offloading that to the AI to do for you. So something to think about if you start
100%.
using.
I
Yeah,
think we should make that a topic of a
yeah,
future podcast. Okay.
I think so as well.
Stay
So
tuned.
what do you have? What have you been on up to this week as far as reading topics on AI and
Mine is
data?
less serious. Mine is literally there is this guy who's using AI to bring joy to the internet. His name is Hakeem Kiki, and he's basically using AI to insert himself into like traumatizing scenes in movies and like fix the scenes in movies. So I watched one of them that he did on Titanic, and literally he like gets Jack up on that door with Rose because there was space for two the whole time. There's other scenes as well that he's done, and oh my gosh, I had a bunch of them in my memory and now they're all gone, but there's other scenes like mostly from Titanic where they're like in they're like in different scenes in the Titanic. I think there's one where they're trapped and the water is rising and he just like goes and like breaks the cage and frees them. And so he's just like saving everyone on Titanic. And so apparently he's done this with other movies where he's just inserted himself. And it's just either really funny or he's like, saving the day and making the whole point of the movie like change. And it's just really fun. Like I think that that's how we should be using AI
Yeah,
to
that's a good
engage
use
with
of all
art.
the computing power.
Yeah.
Yes. It's destroying our environment like we talked about recently.
Yeah.
Yes, this is a positive use.
If we're going to use AI, this is what we should use it for
Yeah,
and
at least
nothing else. So yeah, so I thought that
yes,
was a kind of a fun thing to
yeah,
share.
it's a positive, it's a feel good story. We talk about a lot of, like, most news is like
Yeah.
doom and gloom, but yeah, you gotta have the positive pieces. There are some goods. Bring a smile to your face.
Yeah, exactly. So go check out his Instagram and check out his videos and yeah, shout out to Hakeem or Hakam. Sorry.
But segueing from there to what we were talking about this week, right? So I guess I'll use that as a segue to, I don't know if this is a good or a bad use of technology, but it is a wave that I feel we should all be aware of, right? It's good or bad depending on what side are you on. But as Patricia and I were discussing before we started recording, I think it's a really important discussion about how AI is maybe here impacting one aspect of business, which is going to be sort of the marketing, but you probably could extrapolate this conversation to how, just like we mentioned with typing to speech, AI is entering how we interface with emails or text. And what we're talking about today, how AI disrupting, to use Patricia's words, disrupting the search engine segment of the business world. Everything's based on search. That's
Mm-hmm.
why Google is one of the largest companies in the world. And to use that as a segue, they became that way, dominant search, because of their backrub algorithm, which for those who don't know, it was a novel way to rank websites by importance. That's why Google became the dominant leader. To give the history lesson, like myself, who was, yes, raised in the world pre-internet and then used dial-up and all that, way back in the day, yes, it was basically just places like Yahoo, which was just a list of links that someone curated. And then these web portals became the ability to search an archive directory. But again, back then, there wasn't billions upon trillions of websites. It was, in the hundreds, probably, maybe in the early days. So there was just people just kept a list of these sites and you just searched the list. But then Google came along as the internet exploded. And just to sum it up very roughly, a website was initially given ranking of how important it was based on how many other sites linked to it, which is a concept that Patricia and I learned about in our master's from NYU, which we had a class talking about this and the algorithmic side. But the idea was, like an academic paper where you cite other authors, the founders of Google, applied that idea of citing your sources to websites. So if a website was referenced by other websites, it was obviously more important because other people are citing it, just like you do in academia. So this is what they called backrub, or linking the backlinks from site to site. And that's what gave Google the edge, because it is a decent way to think about the internet. If a lot of people give authority to a site by linking to it, it must be more important based on that alone. But this is your history lesson wrapping up here. Of course, as marketers, we decided to game the system. And what's the better way? We created networks of sites, and you had these early blog days where you created rings of sites where they all link to each other because they, of course, reverse engineered the algorithm that Google's using. And how can we put our product on the front page of the internet by artificially creating links? So then Google, of course, changed the algorithm and how they weight it. And they've been constantly doing this for as long as Google's been around. They're slowly tweaking the algorithm every day, every week. There's always these major algorithm updates that disrupt the markets. I'm speaking from my experience also running websites and how importance on keywords and linking and authority, it changed so much over the years. But now what we're talking about today is the latest change, and this is the major disruptor because it sort of throws a lot of this, a big monkey wrench into this because we now have AI,
Dun, dun, dun.
which is almost bypassing the search engine altogether. And that's what we're going to talk about, how there's a couple variations here, what we're talking about. So there are still traditional search engines. We're not saying that Google and Safari and Bing, all these are going away. The tools, Chrome is not going away. You're still going to use Chrome to search. But using Chrome as the example of my segue, you started probably noticing how there's now an Ask Gemini button in the corner, and there's an AI mode on the Google homepage now. So the search engines are slowly integrating AI into how they, like we are talking about voice, how they synthesize what the user is actually asking and not ranking necessarily based on the algorithm. But of course, I'm sure it has some ranking because it's interpreting the results, but it's a more nuanced way of understanding the user's intent of what they're actually looking for. And then using these AIs, these large language models, to understand the intent, surface the information using agents and sub agents where the AI behind the scenes is searching for you, aggregating a list of sources, and then surfacing maybe the top couple most relevant to what you're looking for back to the user. And that changes the game for the people running the websites because that's what we're going to talk about and we're getting into, and I'm wrapping up here, is because this changes the dynamic of we had a playbook. We as marketers had a playbook of, okay, I sort of know the game. I'm playing the Google game to get surfaced here, but now, and I'm going to pass to Patricia, we have the AI agent, but then we also have other things like the data it was trained on, right? So sometimes you're completely bypassing, like I know I do it myself. I will ask ChatGPT a quick question because I know it can interpret what I'm actually looking for. And it might not even need to go out to the web to find it. It has it in its memory bank. So as a business, right, you want to become the top of the knowledge when ChatGPT says, here's what you're actually talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So what are these? Like, can you help us understand some of the difference of what these terms are?
Yeah, for sure. I would say to kind of synthesize everything that you were talking about, I think you really gave a great example of, or a great rundown of how it has evolved in terms of how we think about where search is getting its information from. And I think now when you read about search engine optimization, there's so many different types of engine optimization because yes, there's search engine optimization where, if there of a list of links, you want your link to be the first one that shows up, has the highest credibility. As you were mentioning, it's because it's been linked out or keywords. Like it's so varied now in how your link becomes the first link in that list. But like you were saying, there's so many other ways for people to be searching because when you are on Google searching through, putting your search into the search bar, not only are you going to get that list of links, but Gemini is actually just going to give you the main answer that it thinks is the right answer. And that is from, mining all sorts of different websites, and it is deciding on one answer. And that is called answer engine optimization. And so I think that comes into play a lot when you're thinking about how you interact with your Google Home or your Alexa or your Siri, where you really just want one answer from your AI or that top bar. And so it's going to give you your answer. And that looks a little bit different. And then you have the way that you search through ChatGPT, because now people are searching for products through ChatGPT, through Claude, Perplexity. And are asking these AI bots or AI chatbots to actually compare products, help you decide what the right product to buy is, and you can even buy your product through the AI. And
Yeah.
so, how is it determining what the best products are for you? Now we have another layer of engine optimization, which is called, oh my gosh, and I don't have it's GEO. I think it's what generative engine optimization. I think that's the name of it. So I'll go fact check myself and will bleep me out if I'm wrong. But that is where you want to optimize your content to show up in such a way that during just a conversation, a user is going to find your products or how you as a user want to find products. And so now there's sort of three layers or several different layers that I think businesses and marketers are thinking about when we're
Mm.
writing content, when we're creating products, when we're putting out our brand into the world. We have to think about so much more than just SEO. And I think the way that consumers interact with companies and businesses is going to change fundamentally by this because you're not just hitting them in one avenue. Like before, we were thinking about things like ads and engine optimization, and that was kind of simple and we figured that out. But now you're kind of fighting against the internet and all of the content that's out there and all the content that can be produced to try and produce the most varied content that hits all of the requirements for all of these different types of ways that people are searching for products and are searching for knowledge.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to think of the evolution you mentioned of how they're searching. So if you think of the before times, before internet, it was mouth to word of mouth, right? Or we got our sources from mass media. Like
Mm-hmm.
back in the pre-internet, you went by like maybe the newspaper or magazine or the TV, right? It was controlled by one source of truth. This was like Web 1.0, where you had certain websites. Then we entered Web 2.0, or if you think of it that way, like the social web, where it was more peer to peer, right? And then now we're kind of entering that Web 3, or like the next evolution, even if it's not Web 3, which I've heard varying definitions of. Web
Yeah.
3 was the NFT web, but that sort of was like a gone in here. So is it more data driven? But also, if you think of like you talk about creating content, we also had that, or probably still have, don't say also had the influencer boom, right? Where
Right.
one thing for marketers was, okay, you got the recommendations from your trusted sources, like your big name blogs. It was recommended on New York Times Wirecutter, so it must be good. But then people wanted peer to peer recommendations. So instead of outside your friend group, like, oh, I'll go ask a forum I'm part of, or of course, yes, like a Reddit, like what's Reddit saying? What's the users actually saying? And then we tried again to get the more friendly side, which was like influencer marketing, where,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm not being shilled by the big corporation or a movie star, but we'll have, we as the brand will sponsor these micro influencers and they'll create that word of mouth buzz with their followers and their influencers. And now we're moving to this AEO, which I feel is almost similar to maybe a reversal back like the pre-influencer days, where we were going back to like maybe that single source of truth. Like, okay,
Yeah.
like what would my friend say? My friend in this case is ChatGPT. And then like what you exactly said, the big part, the thing about as a business is, okay, now where is my friend? Okay, where is the training from ChatGPT getting its data from? Right. And I think that's the big crux of the question, that if I was a business owner, I'd be thinking of, okay, if the GEO is the right layer of, how do I get into the data? How do I get recommended? Or the interesting thing is the next step of that, influencer for the AI, right? Like, how do you influence the AI to pick up your brand, or in a way that's organic, like influencer marketing was? Or influencer marketing was supposed to be organic marketing because, oh, I trust this person I follow on social media to give me recommendations because I'm like them. But then we're also forming this parasocial relationship with our chat agents.
Yeah.
And okay, how can we as the brand influence the chat agent to also recommend us like an influencer would be?
Yeah, exactly. Even when you think about not only just, your AI chatbot bestie as an influencer, you're also, I feel like the reason why people go to AI is because it's so overwhelming to read all the Amazon reviews and
Mm,
read the Reddit threads and watch the TikTok videos and the YouTube videos. So it's like just go and comb all the information and give
yeah.
me what are people saying is the best content out there. But that has the potential, I feel, to snowball because now we've talked about this, is there just going to be all of this like influx of content on the internet to just try and almost like trick these AI into
Yeah.
thinking that one is better than the other? And then when, like, how really are our AI chatbots going to be finding credible information? Because even when you think about what types of websites or where AI is farming for information, I read an article that the different AI chatbots are all leaning differently. So it's not even that you can have like one AI strategy as a business to sort of create content to promote your products or your brand. Because let's say, okay, I think I read that Claude uses more blogs and ChatGPT uses more Wikipedia content. So depending on what kind of content's out there and where the bias is, that's also going to depend on the type of content that you as a user get. I feel like because we're so early in stages where people they weren't really, what's the word I'm looking for? They weren't really given a lot of incentives to really put out a lot of content. It was kind of like you would review content based on if you really loved something or if you really
Mhm.
didn't like something. But now to basically like feed into these LLMs, I might sponsor a blogger to write a bunch of articles, right? Or I might sponsor Reddit threads or forums. And there's just such a way to hack it, is what I feel.
Yeah, I think it's definitely changing because, like we talked about, it relates to SEO because SEO changed how we, as website marketers, and using that if you ran a website, it changed how you built your website because then it was baked in. When I was running websites like for my own business, it was okay, you got to optimize the website. It has to have this sort of structure, links need to be in a certain way, and it did 100% change how you build a website because, like any business, if your customers can't find you, you don't have a business, right? If you're not selling anything, then you don't have a business. So
Yeah.
it is imperative. Gone are the days of like phone books. The web internet is your storefront. So you had to get found by the search engine. That is Main Street USA. But then, yeah, like you said, I think an interesting thing to talk about is also that shift from this website to like the web 2.0,
Hmm.
where like social media, we take for granted now, but there was a backlash in this a while back, Facebook, because we found out like through Facebook, we as a society that you are the product, right?
Yeah.
If you're not paying for a website, your data, you as the demographics, Facebook using them as the bad guy, but yes, because they did a lot of stuff. They mined users' data to sell ads, to build these profiles, to target you with ads, not just on Facebook, but throughout. They sold these lists. But if you're not paying for something, you are the product. And that kind of, you can extrapolate this idea right to AI. I feel that our data is now more valuable than ever, right? And it changes, like, but to bring it back to what we're talking about, it changes how you go about, like you were saying, okay, if you're a company, how do you generate enough validated data about your product that will be consumed? And it changes your strategy that, yeah, like you said, maybe I hire more bloggers, I need more authoritative content. I don't go the influencer like broad route, but I
Hmm.
want to build authority with certain niche, people in maybe my specific area because again, I want to rank higher on the AI agent, on the training data, how they perceive the web.
Yeah, and also even how they do ads, right? Because we've seen everyone sell out to ads. Facebook sold
Mhm.
out to ads, Google, YouTube, right? Like all of these websites that we used to interact with where we just used to be able to connect with friends, watch videos. We get bombarded with ads so often that I feel like it's only a matter of time before our AI is selling us things that it thinks is best for us as opposed to actually answering the question that we have at hand. And so I feel like the role of the marketer changes that way as well, because there's a couple of things. On the first hand, where I think marketers are going to have to learn how to create better documentation for their websites, their digital content, basically what their digital footprint looks like. Like you're going to have the right schema for SEO, AEO, and GEO. There's lots of playbooks online if you want to like learn about all the different types of ways that you need to prep your websites for to optimize for all of these different types of search. But you have to have that first. And then it's like, how do you be creative with your ads? And who's going to be the first one to break down one of these companies to start putting their ads out there through the actual chatbots? Like, I'm so interested to see who that's going to be or how that's going to evolve.
Yeah, I mean, especially in just you talking about the cost. I think that's one thing to think about. You mentioned like who's gonna be the first. I think this is maybe a little bit off topic to this specific one, but it's related. Is the fact that all these search engines, not search engines, these chatbots are heavily subsidized.
Mm-hmm.
Like the tokens that you're using as you type this, that is why OpenAI has such a huge investment. They are burning tokens so much. You talked about the OpenAI versus Claude, how everyone complains that, oh, Claude, you run through your tokens so fast. But yeah, that's the true cost of what AI should be costing. Whereas OpenAI, they're heavily subsidizing these. So I think that's something to consider what you mentioned. So if you're a business, I think we're nearing maybe the end of the free for all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, ask ChatGPT a million things on a $20 plan. We've definitely seen this tokenization becoming a very expensive commodity for businesses, how much they use and how you start rationing your tokens.
Mm-hmm.
And a way to make that up, like we saw in many websites, is to sell your data, right? So insert ads. Like, what other lever does OpenAI have to pull? Either they raise prices or they figure out a structure that works for them. They can either sell your chat history to train data, build profiles like Facebook did. This is what people are searching for, how they're searching with AI, or they can, yes, start. And you mentioned we started seeing that you can shop inside. They're already testing this. You can
Yeah.
buy directly from the AI. So I feel, yeah, like ads or sponsored results are coming into your chat. And then, yeah, again, like regular search, do you trust it? Where does this authority come from?
Yeah.
Do you have, I guess, like the AI literacy to know when you're being sponsored or influenced by in a paid manner? Yeah, it's
People don't
a
have
little bit
that.
ethical question.
Like, people
Yeah,
still don't know that Google has a total profile of who they are, their age,
yeah,
their probable occupation. And so if Google has all that information about you, your ChatGPT has way more information.
yeah,
It understands what you value and how you
yeah,
think, and it's created characteristics for every part of you. And so if that data were to turn into ads, you're cooked. You're going to be spending all your
yeah,
money. But on the flip side of that, I have another question for you. Because yes, we're talking about online shopping, how people are searching, but there's another phenomenon that's happening on the side, which is that I think that we're seeing a comeback of brick and mortar stores because
yeah,
quality has really gone down of a lot of products, right? And so people want to be able to actually go and feel their products, see the stitching, try things on. And we see that trend coming back with Gen Z. They're more interested in actually going in store and shopping. And so on the flip side, I also kind of wonder if do we actually have that much to worry about because is the next generation actually just more interested in being in person and going back to in-person shopping?
yeah. I mean, I've definitely seen a little bit in person myself, but definitely hear the chatter about the AI backlash that's coming and like the resurgence of retro, right? Like it's big to have. I see when it makes the New York Times, it's like, okay, it's probably been around for a couple, 3 months already in the real world. Articles about teenagers using old school iPods, right? No internet connectivity iPods are coming back.
Yep.
Regular cameras are coming back. To give another New York example, I don't know if this is a good example, but there's an Audible physical store in the city that opened up so you can listen to audiobooks in person. Speaking of
Wow.
books, but people want that in-person experience. Even though,
Yep.
yes, like Audible, it's a website. They sell audiobooks. It's not something you can physically buy, but they opened a physical store to just have it create and curate that in-person experience because people crave, even if you're buying something you will ultimately listen to through your phone or your computer, but they want that in-person experience of browsing the shelves, quote unquote, of a bookstore and hearing and then that's what this Audible store recreates. You use these like blocks that start playing the audio, but it's the experience, right? Of browsing, shopping. You mentioned like clothes. People, I think got lulled by this, okay, super cheap, instant access from Amazon, but then you realize, yeah, the quality doesn't really fit like it showed in the photos. And yeah, you maybe want to try some of this. If you're spending your money on this clothes, and that's not even talking about the sustainability of like
Yeah.
fast fashion, of how it's all going to end up in a landfill when you return it. There's a huge other discussion there, but I definitely see what you're talking about. That this resurgence of in-person experiences turn to retro, and yeah, how does that impact AI then?
Yeah, I anticipate that maybe we'll have like a hybrid experience, right? Because I recently, and this is purely just based on something I did recently, I needed to buy a pair of shorts, and so I knew I wanted to buy them at like this store, and I looked at all of their different shorts. I found 3 or 4 that I was really into. and I took the pictures and product descriptions of each of the pairs of shorts, put them through ChatGPT, and asked it to compare all of the different pairs of shorts and recommend what pair it thought it would be best for me based on like longevity, quality, fit, and it ended up recommending a pair of shorts. And then I was like, cool, let me go in store and actually see if this is the right fit. And, interestingly enough, it was the right pair of shorts for me. Like, it actually chose really well. But I did want to go in store still and try it on just to be on the safe side. So I feel like I don't know if anyone else would approach things this way, but I feel like that is what worked best for me, because instead of me going in and like trying every single pair of shorts on and off, on and off,
Give you a
like it was
short
kind of,
list at least.
yeah, I was able to shortlist, and then I was able to just like kind of be in and out. So
Yeah.
it did drive efficiency that way. But yeah, I still need a brick and mortar experience. I know that, because clothes, when I buy them online, they get to me and they never fit, and I hate that. So I hope that other people take away this little example, and hopefully it helps you with your shopping.
Yeah, I guess I'll provide this because I've also shopped for clothes recently. As a guy thing, yes, I hate shopping for clothes in general, but I used ChatGPT to search for type of clothes I thought I would wear. And when I got the clothes, I got the pair of pants for travel, and they sucked. Yeah, right. It didn't fit at all. So not that they sucked, but it just didn't fit the body type I have. Right. It was one of those things where ChatGPT gave me this profile, said, "Oh, for your use case, you don't, you want something light and airy. It's for travel. So I want something light, easily packable, easy to move in." So based on this profile that I had a conversation with ChatGPT, just, okay, what am I going to wear as summer travel pants in Europe? And they said, "Oh, these Patagonia pants are going to be exactly, they have all the features you list." But when I got a pair, again, ordering online, they're more of like a slim fit pants, but
Uh,
it's a little bit more, I mean, it has this, I guess it got mostly there, but it was not really the cut I was looking for. So it was one of those things where, would I guess the devil's advocate, would I have had I had a better conversation? Would it have known that, oh, I don't really, maybe I didn't prompt it well, the saying that I like more of a standard cut versus a slim fit in my
mhm,
legs because I cycle a lot, so my legs don't really fit in slim fit pants? Or was it just, again, the recommendation, it knows based on what it was searching for. It searched all these travel forums and like, okay, Patagonia is maybe a recommended brand. This is their number one selling travel pant, quote unquote. So I'm going to recommend that to Zach, who's asking me about travel pants.
mm,
So, was it nuance of the chat, and it'll get better over time, as we mentioned. So
yep.
as it knows more about my profile, this is now a data point in my long history of what OpenAI knows about me, that no, quandary pants, slim fit was not a great choice. So the next time it'll get better. Actually, maybe this is my AI optimist take, that I'm going through these trial and tribulations, but I'm also just refining the algorithm to know me better next time.
Yeah, and next time, even without you asking, it'll just prompt you to buy something, and
Yeah,
it'll give you like
exactly.
10 ads. So, okay, I feel like we should start wrapping up.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts before we end things off? I feel like we spoke a little bit about the future of how marketing is going to change, how marketers need to just start thinking about how we can optimize not only our products, but our brand, like how people or how the internet is talking about our companies and how authoritative we are, so that we can come up in not only search engine, but in the AI chats, as well as in the series of the world and the Alexas of the world. How can we be the number one answer? So now we're thinking about a lot more than just relevance in a list of search engine links. We talked a little bit about how the experience of the consumer is about to change and what we need to think about when we're even interacting with AI and when we're searching for products online, as well as if that's even going to change, because do people actually just want to go to brick and mortar? And yeah, do you have anything else before we wrap up?
Yeah. I think the one wrap up, and if you synthesize maybe all those points, is the role of the marketer going to change in the future?
Mm,
So, in the quote unquote traditional marketing, you had roles where, yes, you were like a search engine optimization marketer, you're a marketing manager, and you manage campaigns. But now, as you kind of mentioned, all that list of things, Trisha, it's also brand management, right? You want the brand image. Whereas maybe before it was sort of like a nebulous position in the company, like no one had like a role of your brand manager, or maybe that's the CMO's job, right? They're the chief marketing officer, so they're sort of managing the brand. But like you said, I think brand as a whole is becoming important because yes, like both our examples about clothes, like I'll use my Patagonia because it's a big name and that's whatever. Like they're a known brand, but they got that way because of all these intangible things they're doing, right? They're not necessarily point to one, okay, that one marketing campaign is what they did. That's Patagonia as an example. They have all these planet saving, initiatives. They're referenced by other articles. So they built a brand reputation. So like a reputation manager is maybe a position in the future where you're thinking not just how a campaign works, but how is your brand perceived, which is, this is all standard marketing stuff and it's all taught in classes. But do we boil it down to maybe a specific position even? Because it's more important of brand management and in this world of AI where AI is someone that's quote unquote thinking about the brand and how it should recommend things. So I think it's something to think about of roles of the future. How is the marketer's role changing in this world? And from the business side, yeah, how can the business adapt to this with maybe putting roles like a brand manager or reputation management as a more important role that was maybe someone's side job, but now it's a almost a full time job to think about
100%.
ideas
And
like
also
this.
the writer, right? The writer who's on
Yeah.
the comms team, because not only are you now writing blog style content
Mhm.
or are you writing web style content, but now you actually need to be creating versions of your content that are
Mhm.
optimized for each of the different types of search engines.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot more to think about as a writer and how you're actually structuring content and the formats of content. And looks like the future is bright for those in marketing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's my last thought is it's along the lines of it's not all doom and gloom, right? I don't know if I'd say I'm going to push back. I don't know if the future is bright for marketing because I think a lot of roles are changing, but I think this is an example of how roles are changing within that we might be losing some roles to things like AI because yes, maybe AI agents can do some of the roles better, more efficiently than a human could. But on the flip side, it might change to roles like these brain management, right? Writers for this. So it's also something to think about for younger people that are maybe just graduating that maybe is to expand your knowledge of, okay, I'm not going to be just a search engine marketer anymore because that's so changing, but I want to think holistically about some of these issues and how it might not be all rosy, but it could be changing, right? Of exactly what it means if you still want to work in the space of marketing.
Okay. Well, with that, let us know
Yeah.
what you thought. Do you think that the role of the marketer is changing? Do you think that businesses have to think about their positioning more differently and how? And how are you using AI to search for products and answer any of the questions that you have? Let us know. Bye.
Until next time, bye.